Yeah, absolutely. So we think there's a couple of different ways that this can be viewed. So I think some of the work we're doing at the moment is using this information to come up with more realistic benchmarks. So one of those would be a retiree inflation benchmark. Again, how you make that accessible at a broad level versus more granular postcode-driven levels. I think there's different ways to do that. So we're looking at how we create better industry benchmarks. In addition to that, how we create better tools that advisors can use. So where a client could come to you, they could type in their postcode, give you a few key bits of information about themselves, and then you could actually show them that what someone like them is doing with their finances, today, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Start to construct that yourself as an advisor. The second part of that is then how we translate that into product. Again, there's a huge amount of different ways that can potentially be done. Obviously, the rise of things like factor-based investing we see as potential opportunity, where now we're seeing much more granular investments targeting specific sectors. So if we have access to investment options that target areas of the market like healthcare, we can start to think about how we use those factor exposures to put together a more realistic overall investment philosophy for a retiree. But there's also existing managers out there that are kind of looking at this as an opportunity to build an all-in-one sort of multi-manager type product. So I think there's some really exciting things that we'll start to see come through in the market in the next couple of years. Look, I've got to say we haven't directly compared 70% of pre-retirement income to the ASPA standard, but we have looked at the 70% retirement income methodology against what we actually see. And I think the clear point to make from the charts that you've seen in the presentation is that if you look at 70% of pre-retirement income and you extrapolate that for 20 or 30 years in retirement, you make one massive assumption that spending throughout all those retirement years is stable. And you can see that at an aggregate level, it's anything but stable. It actually looks like it tends to decline over time. The other thing is that it's not just unstable in terms of the aggregate level, it's just unstable in terms of the composition. So you actually see different categories will bounce around. The interesting thing we tend to find is that individual retirees, the highest periods of volatility in their spending is actually the years immediately following retirement. So it's almost as though people get to retirement and they actually have to spend 2 to 3 years calibrating and understanding what their retirement experience is like. And once they get a sense of it, then you see spending start to stabilise. But there's a huge adjustment that comes in, and some of these rules of thumb, which I think are attractive for their simplicity, actually have the potential to actually mislead us quite a bit when it comes to designing strategies to cater for the real experience of retirement. Yeah, look, I think the world's changing obviously quite rapidly at the moment, and I think just harking back to our experience in terms of building products, I think the challenge that we initially came across when people were building products for this market is they went down the path of trying to build one-stop shops. So here's the all-singing, all-dancing retirement solution that all the advisor needs to do is put their client's money into that, and then all the problems are solved. I really think the way of the future, and we've seen this in the technology industry in particular, is that everything's now being unbundled. So when I think of that in an advice context, it's not going to be one product that dominates the solution set going forwards, but the advisors need to have a range of tools at their disposal that they can implement depending on the specific needs of a client as they come to them. So, the example we use, I think I had a slide where it talked about this even keel sort of solution. Like that's one example where rather than try and build a fund that invested in Aussie equities and had downside protection and gave you some inflation that was linked to retirement spending, all that is it's just a risk management overlay. So it's an overlay that protects against a market downturn, but it wraps around what the advisor currently uses. So the advisor still has, for some clients, they want to invest them in their collection of fund managers, in Aussie equities, international equities, and one client might come along and go, actually, I want to put this risk management mechanism over the top for a period of time, and then we'll take it off when your circumstances are different. And I think that's going to be much more the way of the future where advisors, whether it's longevity or inflation or other things, they're going to have a range of tools that they can actually put together, and they'll need assistance either from organisations, portfolio construction tools and others, to help them figure out how to do that in a robust way. Yeah, so I guess, my initial comments at the start, like, we're a quantitative shop, so I think we haven't been in the business historically of building beautiful front ends to things, beautiful user experiences, because we tend to find the two skill sets aren't quite compatible. So we are working with a number of organisations that are very good in either financial advice technology, and then some of them have financial advice platforms and others. We're also talking to platforms that are, and I think it's a real exciting, point in time in the market where platforms are going beyond their initial brief of just being a place to execute. They're actually now looking to see how they expand the offering and give advisors tools to help them do their job better. And so we're talking to those sorts of organisations, any sort of group that essentially has a channel where they can use this information and wrap it up into an overall experience. We're open to having discussions with. So there's a few of those initiatives underway now.